Corbin, I am really excited for you to meet my dear friend and extremely hardworking actress, Rebekah Kennedy. I have worked with her before. I have seen her work. Uh, she is like, if you want someone to fulfill a role, this is what Rebekah does. She is a hard worker, kind of the opposite of what you do,
Oh,
Corbin,
okay.
like what you do, but the opposite.
just
Yeah.
just a
Hard
drive
worker.
by out of nowhere.
Yeah. Just a drive by firing. Corbin's like, that's not true. But I'm really, really excited to introduce and invite here with us, Rebekah. Rebekah, hey, how you doing?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really
Hello.
appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words.
Of course, of
I
course.
feel the
No,
same about you, obviously.
thank you. Go on, go on. No.
Continue.
Yeah, no, it's so lovely to have you here, Rebekah. Rebekah and I actually, we know each other from acting class, and I actually saw Rebekah first when she was acting, which is kind of cool. So we didn't get a chance to talk, and
Oh,
she
wow.
was, doing a scene. So it's
Do you
really,
remember the scene?
I feel like I feel like maybe it's just because it stands in my mind. It was was it the Helen Keller scene? What was the one where you were blind?
Yeah, with Shauna.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Rebekah did
Oh,
a scene where she was like blind and playing Helen Keller and like trying to eat food or eating food, and it got
Well, because she's blind and deaf, so
she's
yeah.
blind and deaf. So there was a lot happening, and
Wow.
it was like intense. And Rebekah went for it.
Just
Rebekah went for
it
it.
and owned it. That's amazing.
Just went for it and owned it. And I remember looking at the stage afterwards, and there was like food everywhere. It was like a mess. And I was
Eggs
like,
just on the ground.
eggs on the
everywhere,
ground. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Rebekah, I want you to talk a little bit about that and your like commitment to a role and the hard work. Where does that come from?
That's a great question. I think I don't know. It's just something that's just always been in me. I can't do anything halfway. I just, even when I'm invited to do like a table read where I don't even have the role yet, or maybe won't have the role, I'm just helping out a friend read. I still like read through the script, decide what I'm going to do, like have some ideas, try to bring as much to the character, because I know that's, they want to see the words out loud. I just can't. So that flows into class, flows into being on set. I don't know. Perfectionism in me doesn't want anyone to think that, oh, she didn't really work on that, even when it's something that's not mine. I don't know. That's just something that's always been in me and always been important to my family, is just working hard at whatever you're doing and always giving 100%, because, whoever is trusting you with this part or this job or this whatever, and that you can bring something to it. It's just something that always has been really important to me. And you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
I literally just recently was offered a role in a film based on a table read I did many, many years ago, where I stepped in for the lead because she couldn't make it, from a director that was just was in there observing. So it's just like, you never know who's watching as well. So that's always in the back of my mind, just to do my best. And that's all I can do.
That's interesting. I love that you said that second half, Rebekah, because I was just thinking about one of the things that's different from a normal job from what we do is we spend a lot of time preparing for jobs we don't get.
Yes.
It can be very frustrating, as all actors know. You
Yeah.
do, especially now in the time of self-tapes and things like that, you spend a lot of time on roles that you end up not getting. And I feel like a lot of the world doesn't have to deal with that. It's like they work towards something as part of their job in a sense. But I think,
Right.
but with what you just said, I love that. I think that there's a payoff there, even if it's not immediate.
Right. And a good friend of mine said, like, we have to let go of needing result right away, because it just may not happen. It may be 2 or 3 years down the road that somebody's like, hey, I watched your audition for this and you're perfect for this. You just have to trust that the work you do now will pay off at some point down the way, even if it's not right now.
Did you have a mentor in your life that kind of taught you these sort of things, or is it just purely from you? Like, do you have a family or a teacher or classmate?
Yeah, my family has always worked really hard. My dad is a retired lawyer. I always say was a lawyer, and then people think that he like passed away. He's still very much alive, but he has been retired for a long time now. And my mom was a teacher until she was a homemaker. But that's just something in my family that's just always been important, that we just always give everything, give 100% no matter what we're doing. I played sports growing up and I was terrible. It was not my thing at all. I don't know why no one told me like, you should just stop. But even then I was like out practicing and trying to get better, even though that it was not going to be my forte. I would say my family for sure. And just watching other, as I got into performing, watching other performers just giving their all, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, really inspired me to just do that, just to have that work ethic. And like John said, even when you may not get the role, still giving that, still bringing your heart to it, because I feel like when I don't, I'm disappointed with myself. Even if nothing comes of it, even if I didn't get the role, if I don't give everything, I'm like, well, what if I did? And I'm also a perfectionist, so that doesn't help. But
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to just touch on in that world, which is consistency, Rebekah. I feel like you're someone who I've always seen, when you say you're going to show up, you show up. When you say you're going to do something, you do something, just being in, whether it's in class or working on set, there's a consistency to what you do. Where did that come from? I think it's different than hard work. People can be hard work, but they're like, okay, I've done enough hard work, I need a break. You seem to be very consistent. Corbin, you seem to be very consistent with what you do. So what about consistency?
Well, thank you. I feel like my word is my bond. If I tell someone I'm going to do something, then unless something just horrible happens, like today, it's like if for some reason I was like in the hospital, then obviously you guys would understand that, we'd have to reschedule or something.
Yes.
But
from the hospital bed, we haven't had anybody do it.
That's
From
true,
you never know. That would be really entertaining.
Go first.
It's just really important to me to show up for people. If especially class, that really bothers me. I understand when people are sick. If they're sick, they can't make it. If they're throwing up, it's like, don't come. I don't want you to get anyone else sick. But when people are like, oh, I'm just sort of not feeling well, or I had a really long day, or I just tired, and they don't show up, your partner can't do their work. It's like your partner has worked really hard on their scene, and they need you to be there. I've shown up to class after I was on set for 12 hours. Even if we're the last one to go, that's really important to me, because I want people to show up for me. So I can't really expect that from others if I don't do it for them. So that's just, I don't want people to look at me as someone that is irresponsible or that they can't count on. I want to be that person that, when they need something that I can do, that I will show up and I will, do that for them the best of my ability.
And do you think like, because I relate with that a lot. I don't understand, because I love acting. I love even being in classes. Do you find the audition process fun? Like, do you like to be, because is it always entertaining to kind of keep, like John was alluding to, like 90% of the time you don't get it, but I actually don't mind it so much because I enjoy diving into the scene and acting and doing all the things. Of course, I would like to book it, but I was just wondering if you relate to that at all, or if you were just kind of, because you're so hardworking, you're consistent, all those things.
Yeah, I mean, for 90% of the time, I am good. There's
Yeah.
there's those times maybe where the role is like whatever, and you maybe don't connect to it, or you're like, this isn't even a great script or whatever, where you're like just kind of going through the motions because you want to get in front of the casting director, or you want to get in front of, or you don't want to let someone down. So you're like, I'll just audition. But for the most part, thankfully, I do love the characters that I get auditions for. So that really motivates me and inspires me and makes me excited to audition, even if this is the only time I'm going to get to do it. And that's what I remind myself, is this may be it. This may be the only time you get to play this role, especially now with self-tapes where, most guest stars and even recurrings now are being cast right off the tape. They're not even having you, do a callback like this kind of thing. So it's like, okay, this is it. So I'm going to give my all. I'm going to give everything I can. And I know at the end of the day that I did what I could. And if I'm not right for the part, I'm not right for the part. But I know that hopefully when they watch the tape, like, okay, she's not right for this, but she's a good actor. Mm-hmm. And that's, booking the room. That's my goal. So yeah. So for the most part, I love it, because sometimes that might be the only time I get to act. I mean, that's why I'm still in class. I'm not in class right now. I haven't been This is the longest break I've had since I moved out here. When we bought the house, it was just too crazy. So I was like, I have to focus on, I couldn't focus on two things at once. And I knew that I would be half-assing in class, and I didn't want to do that. So, that's why I'm still in classes, because maybe that week, that's the only time I get to act, because maybe there aren't any auditions. So those little nuggets of, in between being on set, because unless you're on set all the time, which is rare, you might go long stints of not getting to do anything. So I try to take anything I can and put myself into, dive myself into that, because that might be it for the week. So.
Yeah. And I think it's also, once you've tasted being on set, that's me licking my fingers. Once you've tasted that sweet barbecue sauce of being on set, it does make it harder to audition, because and I think, yeah. Rebekah, you have the right mindset, the right philosophy. But there's something where you're like, oh, this is a really good role. This I can really shine in. This is something I would love to be on set and do. And, if you get it, wonderful. That's exactly where you want to be. And if you don't, you're like, oh, and you're like, okay, on to the next one, which is the proper mindset to have. But I think it is kind of, going through that process. And, a lot of times they talk about not caring. It's not that you don't care, but you're just like, you know what, there'll be more opportunities, and, I'm going to work my ass off on this one to the fullest. And then, if this one doesn't happen, the next one will. And I think that's, a good mindset to have.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people ask, how do you deal with the disappointment and moving on? And I'm like, we're all human. I cry many times. I've cried many times over. I don't know how guys handle it.
We break stuff. We take big chunks of ice, we just
cry and break stuff.
You drink.
Yeah, exactly.
I've cried many times over roles I didn't get. We have to feel those things. I think for me, it's like I allow myself to feel disappointed for that day, and then, like you said, then you move on. Then you're like, okay, there will be something else. This will not be the last audition.
The thing is, Rebekah, one of the things I say in my class is the things that are valuable as an actor are the things we mute in the real world. Right. So all that vulnerability you're talking about, we can't be, if we're on a job, we can't be crying every 5 minutes. We'll be able to get through the job. But as actors, we have to be vulnerable and emotionally available, or, anger or whatever, all the time. So it would make sense that, you would be affected by it, as any person would, especially, as an actor or an artist. And I think that's, and it also is us, if you're a writer, you write a script, and, for writers, it can be challenging too. And the script can feel like an extension of you, if you're a filmmaker, that film can. So I think it can feel very personal.
Mm-hmm. Even though, it's not against you.
Yes.
But you have given so much of yourself to it, and
yes.
put so much work into it, that it's difficult when you don't get to continue to play it, continue to explore it, show someone else other than the casting directors, the version of it. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And something I want to talk, Rebekah, with you a little more about is this idea of I think you've done some theater and some other things. And, what do people do when I guess I'll call them the gatekeepers aren't saying yes, or they're not, they're not aware of you or whatever. And I really, really think that some people, they rest a little bit on their laurels when they're waiting for that phone call or that thing to happen. And I really encourage people to not wait, you know? So, Rebekah, I'm curious if, things in the past that you've done, either, projects yourself or theater, or, what are some ways that you've kind of kept the sword sharp?
Yeah, I haven't done theater in a long time, but theater is, I recommend everyone doing at least once, at least one, especially as a film actor or even TV. Sometimes you do long takes. Sometimes they want to do 2 or 3 pages or 4 pages in one take, and which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're used to only doing small chunks, that can be. And I've seen actors just fall apart because they can't get through the 4 pages. So I always recommend theater because it's a great learning tool to transfer into film. Being in class has opened doors for me, has allowed me to meet people that are doing films, are producing. I just recently was offered a role in a film from someone that was in class with us many years ago, and they're doing a feature in Pennsylvania, and it's like, just this person I met who many years ago, who's now producing a film. It's like, you never know who, when you're meeting people, how they're gonna be in your life at some point. I think you're so smart in that you can't. Yes, there are certain projects and certain roles. TV is really difficult to get into if you don't have rep, right? Unless the role just comes out on Actors Access and it's very specific, and you just happen to be that, that thing they're looking for. But other things you can be doing for yourself are indie films. If you haven't done a lot of work, short films, student films are always a great way to get started. And you don't have to necessarily wait for someone to say yes to you. For me, it's just like networking. Networking has opened a lot of doors for me. I did a film we started in 2020, and then the pandemic shut us down. And so we ended the film at the end of 2020. And so it ran film festivals last year. So it's going to come out hopefully this year. But the one of the leads and the producer on the film, I had auditioned for her probably back in 2015, I think, or something. And I didn't get the part. And they were doing this film, and the actor they had dropped out, and they were like, we need someone to step in. And so she thought of me. And it's the first time I've gotten to play like an evil. I play a witch, and she's so evil, and it's amazing. But it's like, it's like someone she thought of me from like so many years ago, from just auditioning for her. And now, now I got to be in this. I think that it's just, for me, it's about meeting people. It's about how can I meet people? How can I stay connected to them? Even if they can't do anything for me, how can I just be human? How can I have a human interaction with them and keep me on their radar, keep me in their mind?
Well, you're planting that seed, Rebekah, and not in a, and I know you well, it's not in a schmoozy way. It's in a genuine way. You know what I mean? You're a very genuine person. So people know you're a good, a talented actress. They know you're a good person. And so if they have a project, I'm not surprised that they remember you, years later, and they're like, Rebekah would be great for this. And I think when when people hear networking, whatever field they're in, it can feel, that word, I think, can feel a little bit slimy, or it can feel whatever people's impression is of it. And I completely agree with you. I think it's way more about like networking in the sense of connecting, or finding other people that are like into the things you are, or is excited about it, or into comedy, or into horror, and like connecting with those people. And it might not be, we got a project tomorrow, or what are you working on? Can I be in it? No, it's more like you build that relationship, and they don't have to be your best friend. And years later, you walk into a casting office and they're the casting director or something. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a big fan, it's been so long. I think that's 100%. That happens to people that put it out there in the right way. What I mean?
Because they might just be waiting for the right project for you.
Yep.
It could be 3 years from now that you met them and they're like, hey, I've just been waiting for the right script, and this is it. This is the perfect part for you. So you never know. I think, just like you said, planting seeds, being genuine, and not trying to get something from someone all the time. It feels icky when people try to do it to you. So it's like, why would you want to do it to other people?
Yeah. I always call networking making genuine connections, which is kind of like the way we're like dancing around it. Cause it truly is. Like, I just last night got this taco place, and I texted a friend because we had it last time, and I was like, hey, just thinking of you. And I just sent it out there, and I hadn't seen him in a while. So it's just one of those where it reminded of me, and remind me of him. And so I sent it out, and that was it. And I think it truly is kind of staying on people's mind that way. And I was just like, kind of wondering, Rebekah, do you try to do that at all? Do you kind of try to like be, as John was saying, like, you're so friendly, so you're so outgoing and nice.
I get postcards from Rebekah every month. Hey, check me out on this. I'm like, you can just call me or text me, Rebekah.
Really
she sends a physical postcard. Yeah. So take note, actor. Physical postcard.
I like drop it off, in your mailbox.
with cookies.
Yes, with cookies. I do. I mean, I know that, there's a lot of people in this world, and when you meet people, you work with a lot of people, you forget about people. It just is what it is. And not not because they didn't make a good impression. It's just been a while since you've talked to them. So I think, social media has been great. Obviously, you don't want to be creepy and don't want to be like, hey, cast me in your next project, because that's weird. But I think just reaching out to people and like, hey, I loved this project you did. Obviously you need to be genuine, not just make stuff up, but and just leave it at that. And then you never know. Like I did an episode of Criminal Minds, and my friend did one before they went off the air, and the director of his episode, I like messaged him and I was like, my friend was in your episode. I loved your episode. Congratulations on directing. I thought you did a fantastic job. And he was like, I've seen your episode. We have to work together. We haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like making those, connections in a genuine way, because everybody wants to be told that their stuff is good.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's true.
I don't think even the biggest celebrities, I don't think are above like hearing that somebody enjoyed their work.
Yeah.
Why else do we do it?
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right. Whether you're a comedian, you want laughs, or whether you're an actor and you want, validation, not in a way that you have to get it, but that you're like, hey, that was great. We really, I think you're totally right. Wait, Rebekah, you mentioned Criminal Minds. I remember when you got Criminal Minds, I don't know about, but Law and Order SVU. Can you tell that story? Because that's a really cool part. And
like how I booked it, you mean?
Yeah, how you booked it.
Yeah. So I got a tape request. So they shoot in New York, and so the casting is in New York.
But she's in LA.
Yeah, and I live in LA.
Yeah.
So I sent a tape in on I guess it was a Monday, and then I found out on Tuesday that my tape was being sent on to producers. So since we're having a casual conversation, when I read the script and I read the part, I was like, as you know, John, as you guys know, I was like, this is my role. Like, I have to play this. I was like, I don't know how to make this happen. I was like, I never auditioned for the show before. They had no idea who I am. I was like, but I just felt so connected to her. And so after I sent the tape in, the next day I sent an email to my reps, and I was like, I don't know what I have to do to get this. I will work local hire. I will find myself out there. I will put myself up. Like, I don't know what I have to do, but I really want to play this part. And they were like, Rebekah, calm down.
They're like, you are hungry. She's like, I'm hungry. Like, I'm hungry.
And that kind of gave them the motivation to check in. They checked in on my tape, and the producer, the casting director was like, yes, she's definitely one of the choices. She's being sent on to producers. Yeah. And they relayed that, and they're like, they don't care where you live. Let's just see how it goes. So like, calm down. It's hard. You get very passionate, and it's hard not to be.
Oh, one of the worst things in the world is being put on a veil, pinned, we call it, or hold, for people that don't, it means they want to check if you're available. Trust me, we're freaking available. Okay. Are you available? Yeah, we will fly. Yeah, we are available. And then the thing is, what's terrible about it is they just hold you, and then they don't let you know if you're released. They only usually let you. Sometimes they do. I mean, they do with bigger jobs usually, but with smaller jobs, they just let you hold. It's a month later. Am I still on hold?
You're like, I guess I didn't. I saw the
episode.
So
I already shot the commercial. But so they put you on a veil or hold, which all actors know is and I know a lot of actors that have their numbers of like, I've been put on hold or a veil like 17 times or 12, and it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. So, but go on.
No, yeah, you're good. Very. And so they were gonna watch tapes Thursday and have live callbacks. But since I wasn't there, my tape served as my callback. And then I found out Thursday night that I booked it, and then I was on a flight on Sunday, and then we started Tuesday.
So quick.
So it was a very quick.
And Rebekah, this is like compliment hour for Rebekah. But what's funny is when I met Rebekah, somehow, I don't know how. I think you had just done the show or something like that. So I was talking to my wife who hadn't met you, and my wife has seen every episode of Law and Order. Like literally every episode. I'm telling you, every season. Like she's seen every episode.
Yeah.
Henny is an enigma wrapped in a riddle. I don't understand.
She's so much. And I was mentioning that you were on an episode, and she's like, okay, let's find it. So we're like scrolling through, and I don't know if you're on the thumbnail on whatever Hulu but we definitely found it. She's like, oh yeah, I remember her. She was awesome. She remembered your episode, Rebekah. She's like, oh yeah, that was intense.
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, it was one episode, but it was, Esther is what I'm going to be probably known for a while, as far as like fans go from that universe. I did this episode of Station 19 in 2020, and I was in the preview for the episode, and a lot of the comments were, "That's Esther from SVU." Like, they don't know who I am. They don't know who Rebekah is. Like, who cares? But they know who Esther is, and that's her.
Amazing. That's so great. That's so great. So I wanted to you've done a decent amount of TV, a good amount, and some film. What do you see? I just want to kind of just pick your brain on like differences between theater and TV and film. Like if people are interested in that, Rebekah, like if you had to kind of think about it, do you see them being one-to-one? I mean, I definitely, you mentioned the length of kind of, what is it? Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I love what Berg says about, as far as like, obviously theater, you're playing to the back of the room, right? You can't give a look and expect that anybody is going to see that in the back of, especially if you're playing in a big house. So, in that respect, it is larger. It is, he always says you can fudge a little bit on things and people are not right up close. So they can't really see, are you crying? Are you not crying? They don't know, you have to be a little bit more larger than life in that respect, especially if you're doing like a musical or something. But, then for film and TV, for me, like he says, it's just more like you're more into the person, like you're like a laser. So all of that, it's not that you have to be like a talking head, because that's terribly boring and not what he teaches and not what I want to do. Physicality and your behavior is so important, but it's just, for me, it's just like condensed down. So I'm more into the other person than worrying about like the audience and whether they can see what I'm doing or hear me. If that makes sense. That was really, I mean, it wasn't too much of an adjustment for me, but I know that sometimes people have this weird vision of like theater actors and they think that we're going to be like, just like doing all these crazy things. And yes, maybe on stage that, would work, but that they assume that we're going to come in that way for if you're doing a film or TV audition. And that, I found that it was an pretty easy transition for me as far as that.
I love that, Rebekah. And yeah, we met in Berg's class, who's a great teacher. And I think it also has to do with being clear in whatever medium you are, like with what you're saying. Like if you're on stage, it's not clear that you're angry unless maybe the fist goes up and then they're like, oh, that person's angry, because they can't see if it's just on your face, if they're further back. On TV or film, maybe all you need to do is a little squint of the eyes, let's say, and they're like, oh, that person's angry, and but it's clear to the story, what's happening. And I think that's, when you're talking about this idea of like, bigger or smaller, I think that's one of the big things, because I feel like the storytelling is very similar. Maybe you can go more places in TV and film than a theater sometimes, but that clearness and, a lot of times, and I'll say, clear and simple doesn't make it easy, right? No. It sounds, simple and clear. It doesn't make it easy. But figuring it out. And I love that idea too, with the laser. Excuse me a second.
No, it's definitely way easier to like have it be very muddled than to have it clear
for sure.
For whatever reason.
I'm kind of curious for both of you. You think your casting is the same or different when it comes to theater or TV and film? It's Rebekah first.
Oh, that's a great. I mean, I haven't done theater in so long. I haven't done it honestly since we moved here. It would be interesting to see now. But it's because even I did my very first thing at like church when I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7. It's like the little church thing that you're doing. And we had to audition, and I was the bad lamb. Like it was I don't remember what the story was. I guess there was like lambs involved and they were astray, it's like kind of the, parable kind of thing. And I was like the one that was bad and not following along and had to be like brought back to the group or whatever. So it's like, even then it kind of started with kind of the more unusual, eccentric, roles, even kind of on stage. I played like a lot of those. I don't know how it would be now. It would be interesting to see if it had changed at all since it's been so long. But I imagine it would probably be pretty similar. You can definitely explore way more interesting character, not interest, that's a bad word. Because, on stage, you're not going to have a lot of like the drug addicts and the schizophrenics and like a lot of the parts I played, you're probably not going to find in a play as much as you know, in a film or TV show.
What do you enjoy about playing those like drug addicts and schizophrenics? Is it just being wild and having anything goes kind of thing?
I'd like to think that my life in general is pretty normal. I mean, John may disagree, but so that, you know, it's fun for me to explore something that is so different from me, but also finding what is similar, what I can relate to is always is so interesting, and just exploring these characters that are just have like these just deep inner life. There's these things that are happening that, you know, you can't do in real, or you can do in real life, but like shouldn't. I don't know. It's just really fascinating to me to be able to pull apart these, you know, peel back the onion and figure out how these people work and tick and tell their story, what makes their humanity. And a lot of times people are looked at a certain way.
What I'd say in real life, Rebekah's like this nice, sweet little lamb. And then she gets on stage and she's like a fearless tiger. And you're like, where is this fearlessness coming from? And she'll just go for it. And I think what you're talking about there is that it's like when they talk about, like, you know, actors that aren't afraid to go for it, some actors get self-conscious. Oh, you know, does this look weird? Does this look stupid? Am I going to blah, blah, blah? I feel like when Rebekah gets in acting mode, that thing turns off. And that's challenging for a lot of people to do. It's really challenging. You know what I mean? And I think you do that really well, Rebekah. And I think that's why those roles, a lot of people, it's out of reach for them. You know what I mean? It's hard to like kind of turn that off. And
that's where you get to use your imagination the most. For me, is in those roles than just playing like you know, nothing wrong with playing the girl next door. We absolutely need those characters. But for me, I don't get to use my imagination as much when it's a normal person than when it's someone that has so much going on in their life and they're in a, you know, maybe a dark place. It's like, that's where my imagination really like just gets to like fly. And I love it. It's harder actually for me to be myself than to play someone that's been abused and neglected. And I don't know, that sounds really bad, but.
Yeah. No, well, sometimes people think if the role's really close to them, Rebekah, they don't have to do any work. That's what I've seen. Oh, this is just like me. I don't have to do anything. No, you do. Now, some people can play themselves really well. They've done it a lot, you know, but other people, I think that it can feel that way, Rebekah, where it's like, oh, it's so close to me. I don't have to do anything. And then it's like, well, no, there still needs to be some work.
Right. For sure.
In, you know, I was just laughing, Corbin, when you asked that question, because I had a recent audition where I looked at the sides and my character is comforting someone else in a hospital. And what it said for the description, it was like the out of focus nurse, male nurse. And I'm like, wait a second. wait. So this person who's the lead of the show, and then I'm just there out of focus. I was like, Andy, this is ridiculous. I don't even want to do this audition. I mean, I still did it, but I was angry at the time.
You're like, I don't even get to be in focus.
I don't even get to be in focus. They're already telling me.
Yeah, they're not even pretending. They're not even pretending it's not going to be the case. They're not even
telling me. I mean, yeah. I mean, yes, it's a prestigious show. But I think it is also interesting to think about. Rebekah, with that idea of like what roles you want to play and what roles you're cast at. I think that's a big thing for everyone to keep in mind, because sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. And I think it's, you know, those are the roles you want to work towards. I just saw a buddy posted something on Facebook that he'd been working on bad guys. And he hadn't really booked. And then after like 6 months of working on it, he booked something as a bad guy, you know, but he put in the work. So he was prepared for when that audition came to play that role, you know?
Well, and people always assume that, because they're like, oh, are you tired of playing this? But it's like, they're not the same. Like, yes, maybe in a co-star land, a lawyer that has one or two lines or doctor that has one or two lines are going to be very similar, right? Like there's not too much
focus nurse. Yeah.
Yes. Like there's not too much difference differentiation you can do. But, you know, for me, it's like a drug addict A over here is not the same as a drug addict over here, is not the same as a homeless girl, is not the same as, you know, whatever. Like they're different. Like you can still make them different, even if they're in the same world or the same, you know, umbrella of roles. Like that doesn't mean that they're the same exact thing and you're just doing your shtick or whatever. That's, you know, that's what I try to like not do. It's just like, okay, we'll just do my thing that I do that gets me the part, but make them different.
Yep.
You know,
And diving into those
different and
worlds.
specific.
Mhm.
And specific. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you get the out of focus nurse.
It's a big part.
Then
I don't want it.
Well,
I
you'll
don't
be
want-
so
I
great
don't want
that
it.
you'll be in focus.
No, I don't want it. Yes, I do. God, I'd kill for that role.
You gotta play hard to get. That's the way to do it.
What, Rebekah, you do. Yeah, you do. It's just like dating, folks. What advice would you give an actor or actress who maybe has just moved to LA or New York or is interested in it, or maybe a younger Rebekah? What advice would you give someone?
Just like in general, or
Yeah. I mean, or like a day to day, like what, I don't know, just things that like would have liked to have heard earlier on in your career.
it takes time. It takes time to get rep. It takes time to get auditions. It takes time to then get cast. It takes time to then move up to the next level. Everything just takes time. And I think people are like, okay, if I haven't done this in this amount of time, then like, I'll just go home. And it's like, but what if it just took 6 more months or whatever? You don't know how much time it's going to take. And it just takes as long as it takes. And as long as you keep moving every day, like I say that, in my opinion, you can slow down, but you can't stop. In my opinion, I don't think you should and it's one thing to like take time off if you have kids or whatever, but as far as like just like working towards something every day, even if it's small, even if it's like, okay, I'm going to send out 1 email, I'm going to submit myself for a couple projects, I'm going to connect with 1 person for coffee that I wanted to meet up with that's in the industry as well, or whatever. Just like 1 thing every day that's moving you towards your goal. And just being patient, working hard, but also being patient. I think those are like so hard to like wrap your brain around, that you have to like wait and be patient, but also work towards it and know that it's not necessarily going to come right away, but that it will come eventually in the time when the time is right.
Yeah, Rebekah, when I moved out from Wisconsin, when I packed up my car, I told my dad, like, oh yeah, I'll like it. I'll like be a star in 2 years. That's what I told him, 2 years. And then it was like 4 years later, he's like, how those 2 years coming? And I was like, yeah, I'm still working on it. And now I've been out here much longer than that. So I think that's great advice. It does take time, and time goes by quicker than you think. I mean, maybe the days are long, but the years go by quickly. And I love that idea of like, being able to slow yourself down, because sometimes you do need a recharge. You can't grind. I've seen people try to do that, 24/7, which I also think we should change from 24/7. I think it should be like 6/4, which is like 6 hours a day for like 4 days. Like that's what I'm throwing out there. So if we want to change it from 24/7, no one does 24/7 anymore. Let's make it 6/4. But you can't keep that pace up, Rebekah. It's just, it's not sustainable.
No.
And so you got to give yourself that space, but to continue to work towards it. I also agree. I literally know almost no one now that's like an overnight success. It just like doesn't
no, when they try
or
make
or if
that,
they hit, it's not going to sustain it.
Yeah, they try to sell that, in articles like, oh, they came out of nowhere, newcomer, and then you look at their resume and it's like they have 24 credits or whatever. They've been working at this for 5 or 6 years. My other thing too, which I'm learning to let go more because of the pandemic, which has been amazing, is like living your life and like going on trips. Like I used to be so scared to do it, like go somewhere, because it's like, oh, I'm going to get an audition or I'm going to book something and I'm not going to be able to go. And then you don't book anything and you're just sitting at home. That's how it goes. So like, especially now that's like self-tapes, like you can do it from wherever. So I feel definitely more free, but that's something that I wish I would tell my younger self, is like, don't be so stressed out about that. Don't be so nervous. Like live your life, go do things. Like we cannot be good actors if all we do is like acting.
Yeah. A buddy of mine wanted him to go to Italy. His parents were in Italy. He's like, John, I could go over there, stay there for a month He's like, well, I don't want to miss any, opportunities, Rebekah. And I was like, I think you should go, bud. I think you should go. He's like, okay. So then he went and he stayed 2 months. And then he came back. He's like, okay, what I missed? What's changed? I'm like, nothing. It's all still here. You missed nothing.
Yeah.
It's all still rolling. There's new shows. There's new opportunities. Like good. It's good on you. And he felt refreshed and stuff. So I think you're right, Rebekah. It is good to give yourself some of that, living your life.
Absolutely.
Don't put everything on hold. And it is interesting too. I'm just thinking about that because there also, I hear the advice of, the further extreme of like, don't get obsessed, blah, blah. I'm like, you kind of got to be a little bit obsessed though.
Yeah.
Like to get good, you have to like be obsessed with things. Like you have to really want to get better, want to, do these things. You have to want to work at it is my point. So maybe it's not obsessive, but you have to dig your teeth and claws into it. Otherwise, to me, it feels like it's very rare, the people that are just really floating along and then it happens. So
yeah. And I think maybe people get obsessed with the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love, I don't know if you guys have read Jenna Fisher's book, but I highly recommend it for anybody, really even if you're an older actor and a lot of the stuff that, the basic stuff. Yeah. I love the quote by Steve Martin in it, where it's like, everybody's like, how do I get an agent? How do I get auditions? But nobody is like, how do I get good?
Yeah.
And that is what people should be obsessed with, is being good. Because at the end of the day, that will rise. Even, it may take years to get the right perfect agent. It may take years to book that series regular or that lead in that feature or whatever you want. But if you're good, people will notice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think people sometimes don't focus enough on, is just being fucking good.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. That's funny. And I know Steve Martin has a quote, I'm pretty sure that's like, be so good they can't ignore you, which I also love, which goes in that same thing. And that guy, he's one of those people that did a lot of hours doing stand-up, I'm sure in small clubs and stuff like that. So wherever those reps are, Rebekah, I think it's interesting that when we talk about consistency and like just circling it back in the sense of like class, you got to get your reps somewhere. You got to get your reps, whether that's with a small group of friends, whether that's in a class, whether that's on set. I think about that a lot too, where like, if you're auditioning against someone that's been on a series for like 4 years, they've got a lot of reps. You know what I mean? Yeah. They are playing at the highest level. And if you're not, also putting in the work, it's going to be really hard
to keep up. And you're going to feel like out of place. You're going to feel like I don't belong here.
Yeah. That work helps give you the confidence. Sure.
I think being obsessed with it too. I just was listening to an interview with Tom Hanks, and he was saying that the job, whatever job it is, you have to think it's the best thing in the world. Like you have to think whatever, if you want to be a director, you want to be an actor, do you want to be an accountant, you gotta love it. I mean, or you're not going to put in those hours or those reps, as John, you were alluding to.
It's true.
Yeah.
When I first started in casting, I did it as a job. I was learning, which I was excited. And then I kind of plateaued and I was like, okay, I'm doing it, blah, blah. But then I realized I had to kind of recommit to the job, Corbin, with what you're saying of casting, because I was trying to be an actor and casting at the same time. So my brain was a lot of it. And I was like, well, you know what? When I'm in casting, I really got to be here. And when I did that, it helped open up the acting too, which is interesting because other people saw the commitment I had made to work hard in casting and be there and show up and be totally present. And that translated into the acting too. It's really hard to do multiple things at once. Well,
yeah,
you know what I mean? You just can't, it's yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think you have about like 3 jobs that you can do per day, like whatever it is. And some of that is just like being a human, like just walk around, go to the grocery store or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then you're a zombie.
Yeah. Then you're a zombie. Then it's crazy. Yeah. Rebekah. So like in the same world where, because I was looking on IMDb, you booked one of your first leads at 15, and I was kind of curious, how was that experience, and how was that the trajectory being like, ooh, I'm a lead, and then just like obviously you got to keep putting in the work. Did you go back to class?
Just as a correct, like I wasn't 15, the character was 15. Just as I was in my 20s.
You're in your 20s, perfect.
But still, no, that's still a great question. Yeah, because that particular film was my first lead in a feature, and it was also like we were filming in Virginia, so I was filming on location, so I had never done any of that, so I was terrified as far as like like we talked about, am I gonna just like suck, am I gonna choke, is this what I want to do? There was a lot of thoughts. I I think it's a good thing because I think you should do things you're scared of, but there's always that, like, you want to book it so bad. And then when you do, you're like, oh, now I have to do it. Now I have to like show up and do the role. Because when you don't book it, there's always that like, well, I would have been great, but you never know because you didn't have to do it type thing. But yeah, that was house hunting. And that was the first thing I did where I was like, okay, I love this. This is what I also want to do. I mean, I would love to go back and do theater one day as well, for the right project. But as far as feeling like, okay, this is something I can do, I do love it. I learned so much on that set, just working with actors like Art LaFleur, who passed away recently, who'd been, working forever. Just watching him every day was just a lesson. He just always showed up 100%, even when the camera wasn't on him. He would give you everything you needed. It was just like, you just had to look at him and the work was done. So yeah, that was, it was a really interesting experience. And then, it was like coming back, you're like, okay, now what? Now, because film's going to take a while to come out. So you're like, okay, nobody knows about this film. Like, now what do I do to keep the momentum and just keep auditioning and keep looking for the next job? But that film initially got the interest of my first manager, who I'm no longer with, but who reached out to me on social media and was like, hey, I watched your film. I would love to talk. So
Wow.
You never know where your connections are going to come from.
That's awesome. Yeah. And how did you put your like social media out there? Is there any like kind of tips and tricks you have of getting on people's mind that way?
Yeah, that's great. I think just like, I don't know. I try to follow and and comment on as much as I can from other people. And I think that people, tend to notice that. A lot of times people end up following me back that I don't know, but I would love to work with, just because I'm trying to be consistent and like they see like, oh, she's commented again, or oh, she's liked it again, or whatever. I think that's especially Instagram is great for that. Just making those like we talked about earlier, genuine connections, and just being interested in their life and what's going on outside of the business as well.
Yeah, that's great. Or dropping off cookies at John's house or something like
that. Yes. Okay, wait. Big fan. Before we, I need one Berg story. What's a Berg story you got, Rebekah? What's a good Berg story?
Oh, what is a good Berg story
that you can share?
Do you have any good stories?
That's what I'm asking you. I do, but I can't share any of them.
No, I feel like I don't. What is a good story? I mean, I love all his stories that he tells about just people that he's worked with, or like when he was in school. Yeah. Just like those little tidbits. Like, I mean, it's not my story to tell, but he was in school and he was in a play, and he said that the lead was having trouble. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, John, if you remember this story. And was having trouble just getting the lines out, and was just really struggling through it. And the director of it was, one of their professors, and I won't do an imitation of him because it will look just bad, but, basically took her out aside and talked to her. And then she came in and just like, was just like crying, and just like, it just exploded out of her, and it was just amazing. And all the time they would ask her what he said, like, what did he say to you? And she wouldn't tell them. And finally, when they graduated, they were like, what did he say? And she finally would tell them. And she said, he pulled her out and said, just fucking do it. And I love that. I love those little stories he would tell about just different things that he witnessed or would happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know if I have any good like stories as far as like in class. I don't know, in class.
Yeah, no, I love him. He's great. And what I always say about Berg that I just love is I feel like a lot of teachers, especially with like narrative stuff, they kind of take the direct line, and he zigs and zags. He's so creative, and I think that's such a cool what he brings in, around the world too. That's not just the direct linear okay, we go from A to B. He takes it from A to purple to 3 to, and that, I love that. So that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's helped me so much in my own work, and playing these kinds of characters is like, how can I get from A to B in the most creative, imaginative way possible? And that's what his focus is.
Yeah.
And that's why I love him so much, because like anybody can say the lines, like,
Yeah.
95% of actors in Los Angeles can say the lines, that's why we're here. But as far as making it imaginative and interesting, and like, people like going, who is that actor? I want to know, looking them up, like I want to know who that is. Like that's why I'm in his classes, because that's what he's great at, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, while we're on the topic of acting and doing acting, we have a segment we call Best Bad Acting. All right. So what we're going to do, Rebekah, we're going to put in the chat.
This is terrifying.
A quote from a movie. It's terrifying. This is really fun. You can't do it wrong. So this is from a comedy. And if you want to do an accent, you can. You don't have to. Let us know when you get it.
Yep, I see it.
You
get it.
Okay.
I see it. I understand.
So, when you're ready, we will silence ourselves and you can go for it.
So I just say the line however I want. Okay.
However you want. Your best bad acting.
Best bad acting.
This is
See, after we talked about all the other stuff, it's
exactly.
Like, I can't
Now you
pressure
can't do it. Now you can't do it.
Here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence.
I love it. So yeah, this is from Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby. I love that. That's amazing. Corbin, do you have a redirect? We like to do a fun redirect.
I do. I want you to do the evil witch. I want to see the evil person in this. It's gonna be weird. It doesn't fully make sense, but I want to see it.
I like it.
Here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence.
Ooh,
I did not like that in a great way.
I didn't. I kind of thought it was a seductress. Witch.
Well,
it was kind of,
I mean, they are. That's part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh wow, that was sweet.
and then I could be like, hee hee.
yeah. Right on a broom, go out the window.
All right, now, Rebekah, I want you to be Joaquin Phoenix doing this line.
Oh gosh, I can't do it.
I mean, how would he do it? How would he do it if he was Joaquin Phoenix playing the Joker doing this line? I don't know. I just wanted to see something wacky.
I hope he does not watch this, because he'll be so insulted.
I'm going to send it to him. I have his email.
He'll be like, I'm so insulted. Here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I wake up in the morning and I piss excellence.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
good. That was like a snake or something. Yeah. Were you doing animal work there, Rebekah? Was that animal work? I definitely saw a snake.
Like in the Joker, he has like, he does that whole like body thing.
Rebekah, I saw it. You don't got to explain it. I saw it.
Was good.
I saw it.
I didn't think it could get creepier, and it totally did.
It did. Rebekah did a great job. I liked it. Well, that was good. Wow. That's the versatility of Rebekah.
For sure.
Corbin, anything else on our hit list?
Nope, that is great. You answered so many great questions. I feel
oh my gosh,
like I know so much now.
You guys have a lot of great questions to ask.
Well, thank you, Rebekah. We really want to say from the Moving Spotlight, from Corbin and myself, thank you so much for your time. This was really lovely. Of course, it's good seeing you. Say hi to your husband for me, who I've hung out with. And we want to hang out in person as soon as possible. This was great. So thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Great meeting you.
That was a very fun episode to do with my good friend Rebekah Kennedy. What'd you think, Corbin?
Very exciting. She is so cool. I'm so fascinated by her.
So cool, and you're cool, and neither of you mentioned my cool coat, which I was wearing the whole time. No one brought it up.
You just look so stylish. It's so hard to bring up something that looks so
stylish.
Good.
It's a winter coat. Winter coats are not well, this one's not.
That's pretty.
It's because I'm going to the mountains, buddy. You're supposed to ask, hey, why are you wearing the jacket? Oh, I'm going to the mountains. Oh, that's interesting. Cool. I'm jealous of you.
Just have a sign behind you that says mountains the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I should do. All right. Enough about me and my life in the mountains. You just listened to another amazing episode of the Moving Spotlight podcast.
So amazing.
Since it's so amazing, please rate and review us on your podcast app of choice.
And we're on YouTube. So like and subscribe, hit that bell, and please keep coming back. Send us messages. We love seeing them.
Yep. We also have a Patreon page where you can support us and help us create more great content. Corbin wants to get into videos. I don't know. I'm a little overwhelmed. But more importantly, share and give us a review so others can find us. If you're listening to us as a podcast, check us out on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a listen on your phone. Thank you for listening to the
Moving Spotlight Podcast.